Hey Rovers, I'm just about to head outside to give you a homestead tour. It is minus 18 Celsius today. That's 0 Fahrenheit. It's a bit chilly. Well, I just want to give you a bit of an overview first, but before I do that, I'm going to have to feed the cattle because I can hear them mooing. They're pretending like they haven't been fed before, but they were just fed about 3 hours ago. Okay guys, what's all the noise about? Sometimes they get a little bit excited and they push the hay out of the feeder. Now we'll give them some new stuff too. Here we go, guys. That's a multi-mineral I just gave them for their health. Well, as many of you know, I built the barn this summer, and it is 32 feet wide. That's the dimension behind me, and 40 feet long, and that's the dimension going that way. We have two doors. We have a door right here, which is the west door, and I would have that open normally to let good ventilation through here, but there's a wind from the west, and even though it's only minus 18, which I know it sounds cold, with the wind it's more like minus 30, so we're not going to leave that open and put extra stress on the cattle. But instead I've got the door behind me here, which is the north door. Well, I have it closed, but I have a man door in it, and I have that open, and that gives a nice bit of ventilation through here, but yet they're not in a breeze. So it's actually quite pleasant for the cattle. And I'll just turn around, and this is the south wall behind me, and it has windows the whole way. That's not open. Those are polycarbonate panels to let light through. And the pen, we're in the pen. The pen is 16 feet by 32 feet. And I have 3 brushes on the wall. So we have a brush right over my shoulder here, and another one just behind me here, and another one over on the south wall. And those are for the cattle. They love to rub up against them, and they scratch themselves. So you might say, well, Alan, what stops them from going outside? Or better still, why not let them go outside? And the answer is because it's icy outside. And if a cow, like this big one right in front of us here, if she falls and slips on the ice, she'll break a hip. And if a cow breaks a hip, well, it's game over. So we don't want that to happen. And by the way, I'll start using their names. The cow, the big brown one here, her name is Buttercup. And this is her calf here that's looking at us. Her name is Clover. She's a heifer calf, and she's the future of our herd. I have a feeling she wants to come over to say hi. And then this big fella right here, he's a steer, and he's about 1,200 pounds now. What do you say? Do you want to say hello? She's very tame. We've been handling her the whole time that we've had her, and well, I mean, since she was born here. All right, the rest of the pen, well, we've got a big gate right here that I use sometimes when I want to load the bales of hay. And the bales of hay are at the back here, and I buy those from a farmer, and they're about 600 pounds each, And this little tractor right here, amazingly, this John Deere, which looks almost like a lawn tractor, it's capable of lifting those 600 pounds with a bale spear right here. Then when I take the bales, and I'll show you this in detail in another video. It's too much for this video, but I take these round bales, I put them in a space like where this one is. This was a round bale, and I cut it with a chainsaw so that I can open it up flat. And then I just roll the hay up, as you saw me do a moment ago, and give it to the cattle. And they seem perfectly happy with it. This is excellent, excellent hay, really good quality, and came from a good friend of mine who has a dairy farm. And then I put all the hay down on these homemade pallets. There's one I have standing up right here. And that just keeps the hay off of the ground. The ground, you can see it, it's beautiful red stuff. It's actually called shale. That's the local name for this. It's a more like a very soft sandstone. That's what it looks like right there. So moisture will travel through it. So that's why I put the hay on these pallets. And then just over in the corner there, we've got a great big bale of straw, and I use that twice a day just to put into their pen so that we have a nice deep bed that they can lay on, and they're very comfortable. And you can see, despite only eating hay, because we're after a very particular product here, these are beef cattle as far as I'm concerned. We're raising beef here, and they have to be grass-fed. That's our mission, is to raise grass-fed beef. And it's a little tricky to do, especially in these northern climates. Everybody I know around here feeds grain to their cattle, but as you can see, just from this good quality hay, the cattle are absolutely in great fitness. You know, they're growing through the winter. They're not just maintaining, but they are growing. And the little heifer, of course, she's on milk, and the cow is producing milk. So that's the barn in a nutshell. I'd like to do a more in-depth video about the barn because a lot of thought went into it, and I'm really happy. It's the second barn I built, and although it's not much different than the first barn, I did learn a few things from that first barn, and I have actioned them here in this second barn. Now, I think we'll just head on out to the chicken house and see the chickens. They're the second part of the whole homestead puzzle that we have here. We are very beef-centric, and the hens, they lay eggs, and they're laying 6 eggs a day, and they're the second part of our homestead puzzle. As you can see, we get a pretty good drifting of snow just from the little bit we've had since Christmas. But we get a lot of good winds here. And this is the hen house. It's a really nice structure. It's 16 feet long and 10 feet wide. And I might as well show you something else while I'm out here. And that is the manure pile. So this is the manure pile. And we will be letting that rot all summer. And then in the fall next year, we'll put that in a manure spreader and get it out on some of the field. So I'll be piling up. I put 2 little sleds worth out a day, and you can see that fresh bit right there, that's what a sled contains. So I put 2 of those out a day. It's manure mixed with straw. So the white fella, he's the rooster, and he's looking after the hens, and we have 6 of them, and it's very nice in here. It's warm, it's cozy, but there is enough ventilation. Generally, we have the door open, but we are expecting a nor'easter in the next, probably 12 to 24 hours. And again, these are polycarbonate panels to let light And of course, heat comes in via that. That's our Christmas tree. We put it in here because the hens just love things like this, and they get in behind and they play with it. Over here, we have the nest boxes. So this is interesting. I got these containers from a microbrewery. They contain some sort of chemical that they use in making beer, and just cut them and clean them and then put straw in them, and the hens love them. They at first they would sit on top of them, unfortunately, so I had to create this ramp, and that's the purpose of that. The hens do a lot of dust bathing here in the ground, and that's what creates all this dust that you see right here. We give them fresh water. We give them treats in these little pie plates and grains that we're feeding from the grain feeder. The hens at night will go up and spend their nights on these roosting bars, and you can see the chicken manure piles up right underneath, which makes it really easy to clean that manure out. Right now it's frozen solid, so no one's moving that, but when it gets a bit warmer, we'll get that and we'll put that with the manure that'll go in the field. It's even better than cow manure in some ways. And then we have one more roosting bar up here because we found that the rooster, he always likes to sit up a little bit higher than the hens, and he usually has one hen sitting with him, and then of course they create their own little pile of manure. But they're very happy. And although Mrs. Rover's away today and I'm looking after the hens, generally Mrs. Rover looks after the hens and I look after the cattle. So I'm now in the corral. The corral is a pretty good size. It would be probably 45 feet wide and about, let me just count it up, and 32 feet going this way. And it's designed really to keep the cattle safe. So when springtime comes along, the cattle will come out and they'll be really excited, and they may or may not remember how an electric fence works. So this is an opportunity to be like a halfway house for them, just to so we can retrain them. And especially for the heifer, she doesn't really understand about electric fences. So we'll train her on a temporary electric fence right here in the corral, and then we'll let them out into the field. So the field, well, the pasture, let's call it. The pasture is 4 acres, and it's a really nice rectangular space. And I have some. I'll just point it to you right now, and that's the corral, or that's the pasture behind me. And so I've divided it up into smaller spaces so we can control where they go, and that gives us a good opportunity to what they call intensive feeding, which means that we'll be able to control the growth of grass and make sure that they eat all the grass within a given area before we move them on. Now, I'll see if I can just head out into the field to give you an overview of where the buildings are. Okay, so the building behind me, that's the shop. And as many of you know, that's the building that I built Wave Rover, the little boat that I crossed the Atlantic in a couple of years ago. And then the building behind that, that's the depot. And the depot's where I keep the lawnmower and the electric bikes and the wheelbarrows and a whole bunch of stuff that we put in there for winter. It's not very interesting. However, I did put some windows in that last year, and the reason was because we kept the calves. That big steer you saw, we got him when he was 2 days old, and we raised him in that shed. We made pens, and it was very comfortable, but of course he's way too big for that now. Of course, the barn is behind the depot, and if you're keeping track, I'm north and we're heading south with those buildings, and the barn is the next big building, and that of course is for cattle, hay, and the tractor. And then behind the barn, and we just went there a few minutes ago, that's where the hen house is. And then the rest of the space, there's about 4 acres from including that corral that we use as pasture for the cattle. Well, Rovers, that's the tour. It was pretty quick, but it is winter. This is the winter tour. I'll be giving you another tour in the springtime that'll be a lot more interesting because it won't be -18. For now, I have to head back inside. It's a bit chilly, But as always, Rovers, thanks for watching, and forge your own adventure.